Welcome to this episode of the Apprentice Toolbox. And this time I'm going to talk about, for me, one of not just a nice tool, but one of the real building blocks at the heart of my own journey with Jesus, and that is a journal. Now, I know some people recoil at even the idea of a journal. But what I want to challenge you is I don't know that it's really possible to engage in the way you really need to engage in your personal journey without taking the time to say, okay, God, what are you saying? And to have some kind of record of that. Because if you're anything like me, I am up and down like a roller coaster. There are times I'm going really well and everything's working well. There are times I'm really not. You may be a lot more together than I am, so you may not need this as much. But what I know is my journal has been a point of stopping and saying, okay, geez, what are you saying? And it becomes a record of my journey. My bedside table has become like two. Beside there's like a drawer in it, and it's a very heavy drawer because each year I've got a new journal that goes in there, and there's now a whole bunch of them, a whole pile of them, two whole piles of them actually, in my bedside table. I actually don't want you to ever read my journals. I don't want anybody to read my journals. Because my journals are the place where I'm honest, and they're messy and they're wrestling. I brought two of my journals in with me today because I wanted to just show you. This is a precious journal. In many ways, this was the first journal of my adult life. You see there. That's the front cover. It says Matt's Journal. This book is personal, so please don't read it unless your first name is Matthew, your last name is Garvin, and your favourite food is a Big Mac. Is what it says there, and private, just in case you didn't get that, and started on the 8th of the 10th, 1992 in Hobart. And this journal, I had some diaries and things before here, but this journal chronicles my journey in that first year in 1992, arriving in Hobart with lots of great ideas and not much of a clue, meeting my wife, and setting the course for the rest of my life. As I look back on it, I am young here. I'm making lots of mistakes. There are some really horrible mistakes I can see myself making. It's a little embarrassing. But what is true is I look back and I actually say there are lots of times for me, the core moment of journaling is where you say, okay, God, what are you saying? Sometimes there is a Bible verse that God uses, and I write that down. Sometimes it's me saying what I think God is saying. And here in this really early journal for me, I see God saying things to me that I don't fully understand until I'm reading him like 20 years, 1992, it's 26 years later. And I'm starting to go, that's what you meant there. A journal helps you get perspective. This is my current journal. You're not going to read that either. But for me, this is my wife bought me this, and she knows the importance of journaling for me. And it's a nice journal. It's a leather journal. I've had a real mixture of notebooks and that kind of thing. But I recommend that you find a journal that you feel good about. That there's no kind of block in you. And often it's also a place where I store. When I talk to you about the covenant prayer, I store that in my journal, and then often other bits of paper. But you'll see, for me, I'm not going to show you all the details there, but because I don't want you to read my journal, because there are things in here again. Although this is now, I'm a lot older, got a few more grey hairs, but there's still plenty. As I look back even on this last year, there are things where I can see I'm not going so well. But in my journal, I'm honest about that. There are times that I read things that I'm embarrassed about. There are times that I'm proud of. But all the way through, there's like this refrain as I hear God's voice, and He gently comes and reminds me of the journey He has for me. Sometimes I'm saying, God, I don't know where you are. I don't know if you are there. For me, there are books you can read. There are advice you can get from people on how to journal. I don't think that's so much it. I don't think there's a technique. It's what works for you, and it'll vary as you vary. As you grow, you'll find yourself writing things and doing things. Sometimes I've written poetry in my journals, but I think that it is important to take time every day to stop and think, okay, where am I up to? How are things going? And God, where are you, and what are you saying? It was Socrates who said the unreflected life is not worth living. And I think it's pretty hard to reflect unless you can get it out of your head and into some kind of format. You might find that a paper journal is not for you. That's fine. There are plenty of other ways of journaling. Some people just use the Notepad app on their phone. That's fine. Make sure you've got a good lock on your phone. That's one way of doing it. I have two different apps that I would want to introduce you to. One is called the Day One Journal, and for about 6 months I used that for my journal. And what I appreciate about this, right up front, there's a code, a numeric keypad there. You can put so I then put in the code, and it unlocks the journal. And I'm again not going to show you too much, but you can see that it has a different day, and you can type in what's what, and you can track the journey. And I use this solidly for 6 months, and I still use it when I'm wanting to reflect and take time out, but I don't have my written journal with me. The other app that I find helpful that I use to journal is this Notepad journal. I forget what this one's called. It's Notability, that's what it's called. It's this funny little app here. And because I'm using an iPad that I can use a stylus with, what it means is I have this app thing lets you have different categories of notebooks, and I have a journaling one that actually is locked. And so again, I put in a code in order to access it, and I know that, and I make sure that code is different to my iPad code, and I know that these notes in my notepad are only accessible to me because they have a separate code on them, and I'm able to then write by hand or whatever. And again, sometimes, for me it may be different for you, but typing engages a different part of my brain than handwriting. And so sometimes I need to handwrite. I tend to err towards a paper journal because there are no notifications. There's nothing to distract you. And somehow I have a paper Bible and a paper journal because when I'm alone with God, I need not to be alone with Twitter as well. It's how I'm not disciplined enough. And so but you may be more disciplined than me, and you may be more an electronic kind of person than me. So if you're thinking about having a journal on an iPad or on a phone, I'd recommend either the Notability app or the Day One Journal app. You may find other ones. But boiling it all down, I want to challenge you. I don't know how you can be seriously walking the journey with Jesus without taking time out every day to note what He's saying to you, to note how you're going. And often my journaling is as much about this is how I'm feeling and processing and getting stuff out and helping me get a moment of sanity, giving it a moment of space. I don't know how you do that without having a journal. So I'm not going to say that there's a right way to journal or a wrong way to journal, but there is a place that you can get out what's in here. And once you've got out what's in here, then having the space to say, okay, God, what are you saying about that? Is what a journal is all about. And I don't do it every day. I don't feel guilty about not doing it every day. But most days I sit down with my cup of coffee and my journal and my Bible, and I'm saying, okay, God, what do you got for me? And I know for me that's been such an important foundation for my spiritual life. So I don't think I can say it more strongly than that. please, if you're not journaling regularly, please consider what it might mean for you to do it in your way. I know some people actually use voice memos and things. That wouldn't work for me. These days with software, you can actually dictate words to you, so it turns up as words in a notepad or whatever. I want to encourage you, if you want to take the journey of faith seriously, I believe you're going to need to somehow find a way to do the equivalent of journaling, and I want to challenge you to think about what that means for you. Well, until next week, where we look at another apprenticeship tool in the toolkit. Thanks for being with us.